In this video, I'm going to show you how to construct the insulating box portion of the fermentation chamber project. Later videos in this series will demonstrate how to create the electronics to control the chamber and also set up the software side of things. But this one will just be constructing the box. Let's talk about the tools and materials you'll need for this build. So the first thing you'll need, and the most important thing, is foam insulation. So they sell this stuff in big 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. You will need one 4-foot by 8-foot sheets, and you will need, they sell it in different thicknesses. You want the 2-inch thickness. That'll give you a nice insulation factor in your box. Now, I use this stuff, which is kind of like the packing materials you'll get electronics in or something like that. So it's made out of little tiny foam balls, you can see there. This stuff is a pain to work with. It's possible to use it, but this stuff just wants to shred and break apart. So it's really a pain. I only use this in my build because at the time, the cost of this was about half of this other type. The other type here is what I would recommend. This is, I think it's called extruded insulation. And you can see it's solid. It's not made up of little tiny balls that break apart. So it's a lot easier to work with. So if you can get this stuff for a reasonable price at your local big box shop, I would get this over this white stuff. Okay, moving on. The other thing you'll need is this foil tape. This is commonly used in for HVAC installs for doing duct work or whatever. Just get a roll of this stuff. I used it to seal up the seams inside of the box to cut down on temperature leakage there. And also because I used this kind of crappy foam, I also sealed up all the edges with this tape, which makes it so it's a lot nicer and it doesn't try to break apart on you once it's built. If you're using this other type of insulation, you might not need to use this stuff on the edges, but I'd still recommend sealing up the seams inside of it with this tape. Okay, now as far as tools, you'll also need construction adhesive. This is what I used for all the joints in the box. Just this, no mechanical fasteners or anything like this. This is enough. This stuff is really strong. This is a small tube of it. It won't be enough for the project. I used the size that you can put into a caulk gun, but it's still the same material. It's construction adhesive. And I used basically that entire tube, the caulk gun sized tube for the project. So get that and a caulk gun. It'll help you out. Lastly is you want a pretty large knife to cut the insulation. So this one is pretty good. You basically, here's the key factors. You want a pretty long blade of 3 to 4 inches because you want to be able to kind of slice through the whole thickness of the insulation at a little bit of an angle. So I think that's what, 4 inches or so of cutting. So find a knife like this. You want a nice thin blade and you want it really sharp so that it can cut through that insulation and leave a nice clean edge. The other thing you want to watch out for is whatever knife you get, make sure it doesn't have a serrated blade, like a saw blade, because you want a smooth edge like this one, like a razor edge. A saw blade or serrated edge will just shred the heck out of this foam. So you don't want anything serrated. We start off by marking out our cut lines on the 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of foam. The details for the plans are below. Click those links. And I marked it off with a permanent black marker and the biggest straight edge I could find. Just make sure to make everything straight and square. Measure carefully. As far as making the actual cuts, you want to use the razor knife we talked about before, and The two most important things to keep in mind are, one, you want to keep that blade perpendicular to the foam. So you want the cut edge to be as close to 90 degrees as possible. And then the other thing to keep in mind is try to cut the foam but not saw it. So you want the smoothest edge possible from the cut. So we're slicing more than we're sawing. Also, I like to kind of use the metal straight edge that I had laid the thing out with as kind of a guide. So you'll see me in the video here holding the straight edge as I cut to kind of act as a guide for the blade. That seemed to help. Now I'm just assembling the box according to the plans. The joints are just simple butt joints with construction adhesive between them. It's really not necessary to put fasteners or anything else in there to reinforce the joint. The construction adhesive is plenty strong for this. If you were going to be touching the construction adhesive with your hands, I would definitely use gloves. This stuff is extremely sticky and hard to get off your hands. So if you're using your finger to like spread the glue out, definitely use gloves. I also used clamps to hold the joints together while the glue dried. I don't know if this was entirely necessary. I'm not even sure that clamps are the best possible thing to use here. All I'll say is if you do use clamps, just be really gentle with them because the foam is so soft that the clamp can kind of go through the foam if you tighten it down too much. So this is the basic box structure finished and drying. There are a few gaps between some of the joints, but we'll fix those up later. Next, I'm assembling the internal baffle, or I guess you could call it the ice chamber. I'm using some painter's tape as a clamp because I couldn't think of a better way to do it. So that's just going to be there until the glue dries. Next, we're gluing in the wooden strips that will act as supports for the removable top and side panel. Before doing this, make sure to carefully mark where these wooden strips should go, because you want to make sure that the top and side panel will sit flush to the box while resting against those wooden strips. You also might notice that off camera I added some foil tape to the internal joints in the box. I don't know that this is completely necessary, but it looks better and it probably should give a little bit of extra sealing to those joints. Now we'll install the baffle that we had glued up previously, along with the wooden strips to support the top panel. Here I'm installing some self-adhesive weather stripping to help seal the gaps between the box and the removable panels. Okay, so next up I have to come up with some way to attach the panels to the chamber in a way that I can remove them easily. So some of the designs use pegs that come through the wall of the chamber, like right here, into the panels that sit here. I'm going to try a little bit different tactic. I don't know how well it's going to work. But what I'm going to do is use these little magnetic catches. So these just have a magnet inside of them, and then there'll be a metal plate that goes on the panel. And then it should just pull it to this catch right here. So let's give that a shot, see how it goes. I'm just going to kind of eyeball where these go. Luckily, you can see they have these little slots. So once you screw them in, you can sort of loosen the screws a little bit and adjust them back and forth to get just the right distance from the metal plate. So I'm just going to eyeball the position here. Kind of put the screw holes roughly in the middle of the slides. Okay, I'm just going to slide it forward to about where I think it should go. And I'm going to tighten it down using a screwdriver instead of a cordless drill, because you don't want to tighten these so tight that they break anything or strip the screw or anything. Okay. And I'll fine tune this later. That should be about the right position. Okay, now let's attach the metal plate. Okay, so before I can attach the metal plate to the panel, I need to figure out where it should go. I'm going to carefully put the panel in place, and just with a Sharpie, I'm going to roughly mark where the magnet is. Okay, that's that. Okay, so here's the back side of the panel where I marked it for the magnet. I'm going to position it about like that. Now here's a small problem. They give you one little screw to screw into this plate, which probably works fine if it was going into wood, but I'm screwing into styrofoam, which basically makes the screw almost pointless. So what I'm going to do instead is use a bit of super glue. So I'm going to put some super glue on the back side of this. I'll probably still put the screw through, even though a screw into styrofoam is kind of pointless, but why not? Can't hurt anything. Okay, so let's just put a liberal amount of super glue on the back of this. I really like this gel super glue. It's better than the liquid stuff. It doesn't dry out as quickly, and it's a little bit easier to apply in most situations. Okay, got a pretty good coating of super glue. Now I'm going to just carefully pick this up, flip it over, and drop it into place. That grabs pretty quickly, but I am going to let it dry for a little while before I actually try to use it. Probably leave it for 20-30 minutes at least. Even though there's not much point, I'm going to go ahead and put the screw into the styrofoam. You know, if nothing else, it'll just keep the screw in place if I ever need it. More like a screw holder than a plate holder. Yeah. Okay. Here's a quick update from the future. So I've now done at least 6 batches using this fermentation chamber, and the magnetic catches work great. I'm really happy with them. But super glue was not the right answer for attaching them. So in some cases, my setup with the super glue worked fine, and the little metal plates are holding. But in other cases, they just came off. So, and I tried a few different ways of kind of cleaning the surface and making sure that, you know, the super glue would attach well. And the end result is just that super glue is probably not the right choice for this. So, guess what is? Construction adhesive. So just use a little dot of the construction adhesive that you were already using to construct the box, put it underneath the metal plate, and attach it with that. And then for good measure, I don't know if it's actually necessary, but I've been using it, it works fine. I put a little strip of the foil tape over top of the metal plate just as an extra level of reinforcement. So I kind of just put that over top, like almost like a Band-Aid, with the construction adhesive really doing most of the work. So magnetic catches, good, but use construction adhesive to attach them to the insulation. Okay, now the moment of truth. Let's see if this actually works. Oh yeah, I think that's going to work nicely. And the good thing is, if I want to pull it a little tighter, I can just adjust the screws slightly. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video in this series where we'll be building the electronics that will control the temperature inside the fermenter box.